Right.
So, when you have your intention, when you're at the bottom of the table, when you're at their feet, or when you're checking their body, like you'd have intentions being like, okay, what is the best adjustment to serve this person at this right time? And what's going to heal them at the greatest? And you're like, there's too much in there. Now you get to the end of the table, you're like, safety needs. This is what we need. Go straight away. Let's put safety needs back into their nervous system, back into their body. Where are you feeling that tension? And as well, when you guys taught us that zigzag pattern, that protective posture that people go into, that was also a game changer as well. So not only was my intention more clear, but when I'm adjusting, it was more certain.
Yes.
You're like, yes, the certainty was there because you have that palpation skill that we all have, that we've developed over many, many years with hands-on experience. So then when you're putting those hands on the people and you're going through that pattern, I feel like that was a massive game changer because you could really feel and you're like, no, I actually need to clear that now. Like you trust the adjustment so much. And then if it's still tension, there's still some form of danger in there, you're like, no, we're not done yet.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Informed Chiropractor. This is Dr. Don McDonald, your host. I'm heading back over to Australia, and I'm interviewing an amazing chiropractor. We had the privilege of meeting her. Actually, we were just talking before the call, and we did a little competition to do a video to win the Vitality Shift, our kind of flagship program, and she won that. So she won the Vitality Shift when she was a student, and then we got to meet her because she came when we did our program. I think it was called the Shift Unplugged in Kingscliff. And that was the first time we met her. And I think that was the first time she met her principal chiropractor that she works with right now, which we'll probably talk about in a second. So please, everybody, welcome Dr. Tally Shackleton to the podcast. I was trying to get her name right because it still looks like skeleton. And she uses that as her professional name. She's married, so in her personal life, she has a different last name, but this is her professional name. So yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, my dear.
It's a pleasure being here, Don.
This is awesome. So it's kind of funny because we've seemed like we've met you obviously since you're a student, and then now you've already been in practice for 5-ish years. But one thing I don't think I ever knew, maybe I did, but how did you get into chiropractic in the first place? So what was it that made you decide to be a chiropractor?
It's a pretty long story, so strap in. But basically, I was a sick child when I was born. So I am alive today because of the medical model. My bladder wasn't properly formed when I was born. So I nearly died. I was on antibiotics for 4 years. It's pretty wild that I'm still alive.
You're still alive? Yeah.
Yeah. And so growing up, I've always seen chiropractors, but it was never the vitalistic way. It was always like, come back next month, see you in a couple months. So I was pretty lucky that I was being adjusted through that period, but it was never regular. Later in high school, I actually went on a big experience where you stayed out overnight for 24 hours. So you had to explore the city. And so can you imagine my history and then that period, that event? Oh my goodness. So that completely threw me. I was in and out of hospitals. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I had my gallbladder removed, my appendix, my tonsils. I was so sick. I was misdiagnosed with epilepsy for a whole year. It was an insane time. So I honestly never thought I would be functioning. I would be able to thrive as a human, be successful at all. So it was a bit of a nightmare. That was during years 10 to 12. Now, I'm really lucky because my family is very holistic. So we would change diet. We would change, I would get a PT, I would exercise, I would take vitamins and minerals, but I was only getting better a percentage of the time. It was never wow, this was the miracle cure, I guess, if that makes sense. It was just a small piece of the puzzle. And so then I got through year 12. I did it over 2 years. I started working in a local supermarket, and that's where I met Claire Molino, who actually introduced me to you guys.
Yes.
And she was like, come into my clinic. And I was like, okay, like, I'm literally at the end, like, I was just like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, I need to try something. I'm not driving.
Right.
And so I went to her clinic. She's like, changed the way I looked at my body and my health. She explained it so beautifully, which was very similar, like, to you guys. Since then, I was getting adjusted with Claire twice a week and then weekly, which I still am today because I practice what I preach.
Good job.
But literally changed my life. She changed my life. I would not be here without her and her explanations and getting regular checks. And it was just the best thing that ever happened to me, because now I'm actually thriving and functioning.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting because, so did she just come in the grocery store? Is that how you met her?
Yes, literally we talked. I was a checkout chick. I was studying psychology, and we just started getting chatting, and we get along like a house on fire. So you can imagine, I don't even think I worked for like half an hour. Sorry, but like, we were just joking, and it was the best. So
That is
I was
so
so grateful for her.
And so that's great, because even before you became a chiropractor, she was able to kind of give you a good idea of like kind of the vitalistic ideas around chiropractic, not just the back pain stuff.
Absolutely. It was awesome. And I have a life now. Like, that's incredible. I never thought I would be normal. I would always say that growing up. I want to be normal. And now I'm like, well, I know normal. I don't want that. But like, at least I'm actually thriving and happy and able to do those things I want to do and love doing, and not feel like I'm going to fall in a heap, which is pretty cool.
Well, and then just for people out there, we'll get into your story, but you are like probably one of the most successful associates you've even seen traveling around the world, because you see a very large percentage of people, and especially for being like you said, you felt like if you did any exertion, you'd be falling in a heap. So in order to be able to have the energy to see that many people and serve that many people, that's amazing on its own, right?
I never thought it would be ever possible, to be honest. Like, this is pretty cool. It's pretty special career.
So tell me a little bit about how the whole thing came to be that you came with Claire to the Unplugged in Kingscliff, to our seminar in Kingscliff.
I'm not sure if she not helped me, but with the scholarship video, I'm not sure if that was before or after. But she actually bought my ticket because I was a student. I was working at a grocery store.
Wow.
And she's like, come with me. I'll bring you. So that was a huge thing for a student. Like,
no doubt.
And like, it was amazing. And so I'm like forever grateful. So that's how I actually came to Kingscliff, because she was like, you're coming with me. She took me under her wing, and the rest is history, really, isn't it?
That is true. And tell us a little bit about how you met Dr. Ben, because Ben is your principal that you work with, and you met at that
Correct.
seminar.
I did.
And how did the even conversation come around you working with them as an associate?
Oh, there's like two different versions to this story. I swear Ben would say, you made me have an associate, and I swear he asked me.
Yeah. We'll listen to your version. We'll take your
version. My version is way better. Let's go here. No. I can't remember how it came about, but I think I still needed to do some hours. That's definitely it. I needed to do some hours still with uni, and I was like, hey, can I come and do some obs with you, finish the rest of my hours? But that's only because we got talking at a few of the nights. And actually, I remember crying to his wife, Sarah. So her and I really bonded, which is beautiful. And then I feel like we just all fell in love. And then they were like, come to Bathurst. And I was like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? I remember getting on a train. Like, I'm from Melbourne, so I flew to Sydney, got a train for 3 hours to Bathurst. And then I was in clinic. We were obsing, we were spending some days together, and then they were like, come to Bathurst, come be my associate next year. And they've never had an associate before, so that was also huge for them. They had the rooms, but they were filled with other things. It wasn't fully set up. So I think they turned it around in a couple months, put some aircon and heating in there, got some computers, got some tables, and they're now my rooms to this day.
I was seeing Randy, we were talking today because I knew we were talking to you, and I said, Ben owes us a beer, a drink for hooking you guys up, because for him to have his first associate be you and like come in with such a willingness to learn, and what you've done is he's a lucky guy, and you're a lucky girl to find him too. So it's kind of nice how that thing just worked beautifully together.
Yeah, it is. He definitely owes you a beer though. Sure. I agree with that.
He always owes me a beer. It's all good. So, but like, tell us a little bit about when you first started practice. Kind of, we got people listening to this podcast that might just be starting practice. We know you worked your tail off, so it's not like you just got really busy because you just sit around and did nothing. We all know a lot of chiropractors think that once they graduate, they're just going to put their sign up and then everything's going to be hunky dory. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Tell me a little bit about how you started to grow at the beginning, because you did a really good job.
It was definitely a journey. I don't know. With that, the first year was rough. Like, the first year was interesting because it was like I never thought I was good enough, let alone good enough to be a successful chiro. So like having that, I was like, I'm out now. But it was so fascinating because when you get in your head, it actually affected the practice as a whole, like through that week. So your numbers, you would notice like a drop in numbers for that week. So then you're like, okay, we need to get out of this head. We need to put things in place. But it's also hard because you have to remember how to adjust. So integrate, drop piece, manual adjustments that you do, AK, SOT, all of that stuff, let alone that. Then x-rays, communication, reading x-rays. Like
teaching people on good treatments, care plans.
So,
No.
I think that was the biggest learning curve, was that first year. Holy moly. But I was just really lucky because I had the support network. Like, I had the best support team, like in my family and my husband, but also with my clinic. So with Ben and Sarah, they have the systems in place. So it was like really structured, which I really, really needed. I followed Ben. I did obs with Ben for weeks. I was recording him. He would spend hours after dinner going through ROF talks with me, just so I got that language and I actually was understanding what I was saying. Like, but post-uni, you don't know how to communicate that. Right. You're like, I know how good it is, but I can't actually articulate that, if that makes sense.
100%.
So that was a massive learning curve, but I was just so lucky with the systems that we had in place. The functional tests, I was able to clinically give the objective finding pre and post. So that was really easy, and that in place was just a massive game changer.
Well, that's good because you had
easier.
Because you got the vitality shift when you're in school, and then once you got there, now the good thing is that Ben was using all the objective findings, so then it just kind of feathers through. Like, it's nice when you have like consistent like ideas on how we're going to measure improvement in function through like improving subluxation. Like, it's pretty cool, and that's the same.
It's huge because you can actually show a person, this is what's changed. Holy moly, like, how cool is that? So that was awesome. To be able to have the vitality shift and all those objective findings with pre and post test, but then also the language. I would always listen to you guys as well on repeat, reading. So then that language, it constantly like had that repetition in my brain to be able to actually articulate, like I was saying. But it did get easier. Second and third year, oh my gosh, so much easier.
You start trucking along.
Like second nature.
And we talked to that a lot about chiropractors, is that it, like how you talked earlier about like if you're having an off week, how that reflects in your volume so fast. So that's one of the things I find that's interesting about chiropractor is you get such kind of immediate feedback within a week or two if you're off track in your mind, because your volume just goes down. Like, you just go,
yeah,
right?
Like, I don't want to come back. You're like, okay.
But I find it's pretty cool accountability because, like, Brandy always says, like, you can't give away what you don't have. So it's like super important to be able to look after ourselves. So that being said, what kind of things did you do to kind of keep yourself on track, to keep your self-care going? Because again, it takes a tremendous amount of energy to grow a practice at the very beginning.
Huge. You're like walking around, giving flyers. We were doing talks at the supermarket, like free spinal health check, like some retirement homes. Like, yeah, it was fun. And probably not gonna lie, I did burn out a lot in the first couple of years. It really wasn't until I did the 90 days mentorship with Brandy that she was like, do you have fun? Like, are you happy? I'm like, I work? What do you do for fun? I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I'm working. That's what I do.
I love chiropractic. What do you mean by that? So it really helped having her and you as well on my team to be like, okay, we need to turn this around. So then like you guys told me that I needed that balance. So then I started thinking about what I love doing. So then I started putting that into play as well. So I was getting dancing now, which I still do every week.
Nice.
We bought a puppy. So there was little things that we were like, we needed to integrate. So I was good for them. So then I was able to serve more people.
Well, it's interesting because when you do something like start a new practice, sometimes there's like, that's why they say sometimes balance is a little bit of an illusion, because temporarily you actually need to go off balance in order to get the practice going. But then if you don't rebalance, like that's how people just they'll crash and burn. Like it's unsustainable over a long period of time. So that is a really good lesson to know that, yes, we will go off balance probably, and we will start to feel a little bit burnt out. But as long as you course correct before like the full brunt of it hits your health, and you probably had to be a little bit careful too, because your health had been so fragile in the past, you didn't want to go in there and just burn it back out again just since you got it back.
Absolutely not. I was like, hell no, I'm not going back to that stage. But it was very handy having also Ben being able to be adjusted all the time as well. I'm like, okay, I'm out. Please come help me. Yeah.
It's like I'm dysregulated. I need the re-regulation and stuff like that. So
I'm offline and I don't know how to smile. Help me.
Yeah, I know my face doesn't work. My social engagement system is on the fritz stuff, right? So
turning on. My resting bitch face. I don't want that. I need help.
Well, that being said, that goes to a great transition into the polyvagal theory. So like, especially during COVID, we really I got really focused into the polyvagal theory because we saw a lot of people through the trauma of COVID, like just change the way that they were coming in and presenting in practice. Like the same people we were seeing before were not the same people after. And so we started, well, not only created the McDonald Safety Corridor, but just started doing a lot of work with our core group about implementing principles from the polyvagal theory into practice. And so what are some of the learnings from the polyvagal theory that you really took and implemented?
Number one, it was less complicated in my mind.
Right.
So, you know, when you have your intention, when you're at the bottom of the table, when you're at their feet, or when you're checking their body, like you'd have intentions being like, okay, what is the best adjustment to serve this person at this right time, and what's going to heal them at the greatest? And you're like, there's too much in there. Now you get to the end of the table, you're like, safety needs. This is what we need. Go straight away. Let's put safety needs back into their nervous system, back into their body. Where are you feeling that tension? And as well, when you guys taught us that zigzag pattern, that protective posture that people go into, that was also a game changer as well. So not only was my intention more clear, but when I'm adjusting, it was more certain.
Yes.
You're like, yes, the certainty was there because you have that palpation skills that we all have, that we've developed over many, many years with hands-on experience. So then when you're putting those hands on the people and you're going through that pattern, I feel like that was a major game changer because you could really feel and you're like, no, I actually need to clear that now. Like you trust the adjustment so much, and then if it's still tension, there's still some form of danger in there, you're like, no, we're not done yet.
That's great.
So that
great way to explain
that
it.
was really cool.
Sometimes I'm like, because sometimes I just do stuff because I feel like it, but then you try to like cognitively try to describe it. But that was a great way to describe it. So thank you.
I go on and on about mentoring ships with you guys. But back to like when I did the 90 days, I remember Brandy watched my video and was like, why are you running back and forth? And I was exhausted because you go check the feet, then you go up and then you go check the feet. And it was so tiring. So then being like, okay, you need to stop that and actually, we have the intuition. We're Labradors. We know where it is without knowing. We just know. Like, you can't explain it. You just know is what I'm trying to say. And so, so then having the polyvagal theory and adjusting through that lens as well, it just gave me that more clarity.
Yeah, and we realized you didn't have to get your 10,000.
That's exhausting.
Yeah, you didn't have to get your 10,000 steps in on each patient, each practice.
I was very fit back then. I was exhausted.
I know it is tiring when you're just doing that. But yeah, I think, and part of it is through experience as well. As like, even for me, like now that I've been in practice for like 27 years, you start to see patterns. So it's funny because even during conversation with somebody, what they say, because subconsciously what you say is almost like the nervous system talking to you, like they don't even cognitively know. And then that's like, I'm going to check this. And if I check this, there's a pattern with this. And I usually see this and this and this. And then you go do that on, they go, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, I said, a protected shoulder, everything goes together. Protected hip, everything goes together. A protected occiput, all these things usually go together. And so you can start to see those patterns. But like you said, it does take some time and experience to be able to get quicker at chunking down information, so that you just need one or two little pieces of evidence, one little check, and then you already know, boom, this is what I'm doing.
Done. But also it makes the conversation so much easier as well post, because then your person's like, why? And you're like, what? I don't have to go on this whole spiel about it. I can just say it's a protective hip. Your body is brilliant. She is so brilliant. She's always wanting to self-regulate. So then she's going into your protective pattern for a reason, and this is that compensatory pattern. And I feel like that just makes the language as well and the communication so much easier, and people actually get that.
Yeah, and especially if you
say, cool.
Especially if you say, like, if someone's always been experiencing that danger, that they're wired into the pattern of protection, and that's why you're protecting even though whatever their danger was is not there. And so we're trying to just almost, like I said, it's like our physiology is talking their physiology, and we're saying you're safe, like in a neurological level, because it's okay. It is okay right now, but sometimes it doesn't realize it's okay because it's so used to being protected.
Yeah, definitely.
So you came and hung out with us in Sydney last year, and so I'm just curious, because we did the upper spine McDonald safety corridor, and then we just did the polyvagal team as far as like communicating the polyvagal theory with explaining chiropractic care using some of this language. And I know you've already described some of the things that you've implemented, but what were kind of some of the highlights you had from that weekend?
I think learning the adjustments are a bit of a game changer, because there's not many seminars that do the adjustments, like you have the syntropy and all of those things, but you can't leave that seminar and just do them. Whereas the adjustments that you taught me, I was able to implement it straight away the next day in clinic, because if I couldn't do it, I would do it with the drop piece, I would do it with an integrator, like an activator or an arthro stim, and then that got those changes, and the changes were game changing. It was amazing. You could see it straight away, or you would see it the next week. I feel like that was a big thing. Also, because of our personality and who we are, we take a lot of people when they have resting bitch face, and we take it to heart. So now when I see that, I'm not offended. It's great. I'm like, they're shut down. But also then knowing that, I changed my adjustment. So if they're in dorsal vagal, I'm like, well, I have to go hammer and tong on them. If they're in fight flight, I'm like, I can wheel it back. We can gently go into that system. We can calm that down. We can go in slowly. Yeah. So I don't blow them out. And that was also a really big thing as well. It was just another piece of the puzzle that was missing. And now it's just like, I just feel like I'm getting more out of the adjustment, which is really, really cool.
That's awesome.
More results.
More results. That's great. And more certain.
And better for my heart as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's less stressful too, right? Because you're not trying to not that we're trying to fix people before, but we realize that the state of ease, like I always say, we can be regulated or we can be dysregulated, and how healthy you are over your life is how much time you spend in regulation. And us as chiropractors with the chiropractic adjustment, we're just contributing to a more time in a regulated state. So, and it's a process, life is a process over time. It's not just an event. So just realizing I'm contributing to the time they spend in a regulated state, which will always help to improve their health. And then it's less stressful, because we're not having to have the perfect adjustment that does the perfect pressure off the nerve, which like heals a certain condition, and then we don't have to feel so stressed out, or like fix their back pain in one shot, or blah 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 blah, right? So
Yes,
so it's a little bit helpful.
much nicer. Yeah.
So a lot of if chiropractors out there have been in practice 5 years or so, what kind of words of wisdom or what kind of advice would you might have wanted to be able to give back to your older self? So imagine you could kind of fly through time and talk to yourself when you first graduated. Is there certain words of wisdom you'd give your younger self?
Probably, like, don't give up. Like, this time will pass. Now that I've gone through that, I'm like, this is my sole purpose in this life. Like, this is why I was put on this earth, is to adjust and to help all those people that maybe the medical model failed them. So I feel like a lot of that is just, you can do it. It's more like a you got this type of thing. That's probably my wisdom, like constantly just keep telling yourself that you can. Like,
well, and I laugh because like for people out there, we talk about the different animals is just personality styles, and so we're both Labradors, and and I think for a Labrador to find out the only time you grow is when you're in discomfort, it's kind of like it's kind of a disappointing law to discover. Like, I would prefer to grow in like love and bliss where everything's good and I'm still growing, but unfortunately that's not what happens.
That's not what happened.
So at least now when I know like I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm like, oh, I must be growing, even though I don't really enjoy it. But yeah. Those, like, I'm leveling up. It's like the hardest week in practicing. You're like, Ben whispers in my ear, you're leveling up, and you're like, okay. Are we having fun yet? Yeah.
And then the week after that, you're like, oh, leveled up. You're right. That was easy. Says no one.
Yeah, exactly. So are there any things that you do, like as far as self-care or mindset stuff to get you ready for the week, or like to get you kind of, we got people listening to this, they might be driving to work. Like, what kind of things do you do to kind of keep elevated for your people?
Well, actually, another game changer that Brandy told me, which I still like fits in my brain to this day. She's like, you perform like a top athlete. And I was like, what do you mean by that? You're like, you need to train like physically like a top athlete. So now I go to the gym, I lift weights. It's a game changer going to the gym a couple times a week, if you can get there. Like, if you can get there 3 to 4 times, oh my goodness, it makes a world of difference. Because then when I'm adjusting my truckies and my farmers and my construction workers and my builders, it's so much easier. And they're like, oh my God, you're so strong. And you're like, damn straight I am. But that was huge. Now, since implementing that in place, like, just do it. It makes the world of difference. Yes, you're exhausted for the first couple of weeks, but then after that, everything becomes easier, and you're just better for it, and then your people are better for it. So that was another gem.
That is, and again, I think it gives me appreciation for all the chiropractors out there, because like in chiropractic, you have to have such a blend of skills. Like, it's amazing. You have to be smart. You have to like know what you're doing. You have to know your anatomy, know your physiology. You have to be like coordinatedly skilled. Like, you have to be able to physically have skill to be able to give an adjustment. You have to be strong and flexible, right? Or you get injured. You have to make sure you look after your diet, because if you're eating crap, your energy's not going to be good and you're not going to be able to succeed. You have to look after your sleep so that you recover properly, so that you are at the top of your game. Whew.
It's a lot.
It seems like a lot. I know, but I think that's what differentiates, though, I think, the long-term successful people in practice from other ones that either get injured or else they get burnt out, to not be able to continue. So
definitely go put in the hard work.
That's great. Well, I just want to, again, we're coming to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We always get more typically we get principal chiropractors on, and I was just really thought it was really important, because we have principals, or we have associates. Like you said, if you need some structure I think it would be very challenging sometimes for someone to open right from scratch if you're out of school and you don't have your adjusting kind of under control, you don't have your communication under control, you don't have your care planning under control, and then you don't have staffing and like business stuff, lease, and like there's a lot of stuff. So I think it's a really good option, and so it's really nice to hear too. You guys have had a good relationship over this time, and it's been beneficial for both of you. So thank you. We're very proud of you from having that young student that came to Kingscliff, where you and Claire, remember, were writing those Kingscliff things on the beach. Remember?
Yeah.
And with the big hearts and stuff.
That.
Yeah. And I remember I was just talking with Brandy. We were talking about early mornings and how beautiful early mornings were. And I just remember every morning, because we were jet lagged, we get up at like 5 a.m. But we'd always go to that little coffee shop that was on the strip there, and then go right out to the beach. And we'd always just walk the beach and watch the sun come up. So that was pretty.
So beautiful.
That was a beautiful time. So thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. You did wonderful. She was all nervous about coming on, but she crushed it, just like she crushes practice. So that's good. And so everybody out there, I hope you guys had some great inspiration from that. Tally had some really great points to keep top of mind to up your game and up level as a chiropractor. So everybody have a wonderful day, and then we will see you again in 2 weeks. Take care.